Friday morning, the 8th grade homeroom at Easton Middle School buzzed with familiar sounds. Plastic chairs scraping the floor, pen caps clattering on gray tile, laughter mixing with lazy sighs. Everything was playing out like any normal morning assembly, chaotic, messy, and slightly pointless. Maya Carter, a dark-skinned girl with a delicate face and large, downcast eyes, moved through the hallway, avoiding every gaze, wrapped in a faded bomber jacket, far too large for her frame. Once a deep navy, the jacket had worn down to a dull gray blue. On its left shoulder, a small stitched design stood out, a shooting star, cutting across a black-threaded night sky. The silver threads had frayed, but the image remained unmistakable. It was the one thing Maya never took off, no matter how worn, how oversized, or how often it got mocked. "Allison, look at that," a smug, pretty white girl said with a sneer. "Does that jacket smell like burnt trash, or did it come from the Perry Street dumpsters?" The girls around her burst into giggles. "Oh my God, it looks like something someone tossed 10 years ago and she still wears it. That patch looks like a knockoff logo or something. Her mom probably found it in the trash for real. Poor black kids like her only wear garbage like that." Maya didn't respond. She was used to being invisible, a shadow in the classroom, noticed only when someone needed a target. She clutched the edge of her jacket, eyes locked on the patch where the stitching had started to come undone. That shooting star wasn't decoration to her. It was something deeper, quieter. Her mother had given it to her on her 12th birthday, without explaining where it came from. Just looked Maya in the eye and said, "Take good care of this for me, okay?" She never dared ask why. As she passed through the hallway and into the homeroom, "Wait a second. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps us." The teasing hadn't stopped. But then suddenly the door flung open, and all the noise vanished like someone had pulled a plug. A tall white man entered, clean-shaven, in full formal military uniform, his chest gleaming with medals and 4 silver stars shining on his shoulders. It was General Douglas A. Harrington, commander of the Eastern Defense Region, visiting the school per a pre-arranged defense preparedness program. The fact that a general was visiting any middle school was rare. That he came during morning assembly? Unheard of. Teachers stood at once. Students snapped to attention. The entire room fell still, as if doused in cold water. General Harrington didn't speak right away. He nodded to the vice principal, then strode into the room with military posture, his eyes sharp as razors, sweeping across every row. No one dared fidget. His presence brought a gravity that made backs straighten, not from fear, but from something like respect. But when his gaze reached the back row where Maya sat, something strange happened. He stopped, completely. Didn't blink. His eyes were locked onto her jacket. More specifically, onto the faded silver shooting star patch on her shoulder. A moment passed, a long, heavy moment. The room seemed to hold its breath. Then, he turned and began walking straight to her. Maya looked up, fingers gripping her jacket tightly as if she could fold into it. He stopped in front of her, his voice low but unmistakable. "You, stand up." Maya rose slowly, trembling, small and thin against the towering figure before her. "That jacket," he said, still staring at the patch. "Where did you get it?" The class froze. Then the whispers rippled out like an underground current. "Oh my God, she's getting arrested. That's gotta be stolen army gear. I told you she looked like trouble." Maya opened her mouth, about to speak. But the general turned to the teacher. "I need to speak with his student. Alone." The teacher nodded, anxious. Maya was escorted out. The door closed behind them, and in its wake, the room erupted with a buzzing storm of gossip. "Allison, I swear she's getting expelled for stealing military stuff. Or maybe that jacket belonged to some dead soldier or something. Ew. Black kids have no shame." Maya didn't hear any of it. She was following the general down a long, cold hallway, fluorescent lights casting shadows behind them like warning signs. She didn't know it yet, but her next steps were leading her into a completely different world. The private conference room in the administrative wing had gray-painted walls, and a heavy varnished wooden table. The frosted glass door shut tight, soundproofed from the rest of the school. The air inside was thick, suffocating, as if every molecule stood still to hear what would unfold. Maya Carter sat curled up in the leather swivel chair. Across from her, General Douglas Harrington stood tall, arms crossed, eyes sharp and dissecting, as if looking at her under a microscope. On the table, he had carefully set down his officer's cap, the symbol of authority, discipline, and battlefield command. "Maya Carter," he said, his voice low but heavy with pressure. "The jacket you're wearing, do you know what it is?" Maya swallowed hard. She looked down at the embroidered shooting star on her sleeve, and suddenly it felt like it was burning through her skin. "It's just a jacket. My mom gave it to me." "It's not just a jacket," he cut her off. "That's a limited-issue bomber jacket, designed specifically for the classified M7 flight program. Only 8 were ever issued across the country. 8 pilots, and each one had its own unique identifier, like that embroidery." Maya's eyes widened. Her mother had never said anything about pilots or secret programs. She stammered, I didn't know." General Harrington stepped closer, his polished black shoes echoing coldly against the floor. "Then, let me ask again, where did you get that jacket?" Maya clenched her hands together. Her voice trembled. "My mom sells second-hand clothes in the Egan Street flea market. Sometimes people leave clothes they don't want. She picked some up. This one, it was leftover stock. She washed it and gave it to me to wear." She bowed her head, lips pressed tight. There was a long, heavy silence. Finally, the general inhaled, stepped back to the table, and picked up his cap. "I think I mistook you for someone else." His tone had softened, no longer stern, just disappointed. He asked nothing more. No thank you, no apology. He simply opened the door and said, "You may return to class." Maya lowered her head and left, not daring to look at him. Her shadow stretched along the empty hallway, small, blurred, and silent, like her entire existence these past years. As the classroom door reopened, whispers exploded like firecrackers. Maya stepped in, every pair of eyes stabbing at her like tiny knives.
"Told you, bitch, she got chewed out big time. Did you see how General Harrington looked at her? Like he was gonna slice her into pieces? It gives me chills just watching."
Ugh, look at her. Acting like she's some noble descendant or something. Trying to fake being a military kid to get special treatment, huh? Serves her right. Got caught. God, impersonating military stuff. That's low, even for her. Trash pretending to be a shooting star. Laughter buzzed through the room like electric static. Maya bit her lip. Her eyes were red, but no tears came. She simply lowered her head, walked slowly to her seat, and curled into the corner of her chair, like a small cat hiding inside a dented box, trying to disappear under all those scornful stares. She didn't explain. She didn't blame anyone, because Maya was used to it. That feeling of always standing outside the line, outside every group, every dream. Far away, in a poor neighborhood on the east side of the city, Justine Carter, Maya's mother, was laying out clothes under a sun-faded tarp. It was a makeshift market stall in a crowded flea market, where workers of all ethnicities hustled to survive. A Mexican man slicing fruit, a Filipino woman frying snacks on wheels, and Justine selling old jackets, hand-knit scarves, and handmade canvas bags. Justine was a black woman in her early 40s, her natural curls tied back with a worn silk scarf. Petite in stature, but with eyes that burned steady and bright, the gaze of someone who had gone very far, and now only wanted to stand still. She lived almost invisibly. Every dollar she made went towards school fees, meals, and a tiny attic apartment, cramped but safe. Maya never asked about the past. All she knew was that her mom had once been someone, according to a neighboring vendor who once whispered it. But her mother only smiled and said, "The past doesn't feed you in the market. Better to pack it away." And one day, when Maya had a fever, Justine took out the jacket, said nothing, dressed her in it, and gently brushed her shoulders. This jacket once flew across the sky. Now it keeps my daughter warm. She didn't know that very embroidery would soon awaken storms, she thought. Buried in ashes, and Maya, huddled at the back of the class, letting mocking laughter hit the back of her neck, still had no idea. She didn't know that patch was the personal emblem of a female pilot who once sent shockwaves through the U.S. military ranks. Codename Shooting Star, the only black woman in Air Force history to publicly expose a secret arms smuggling ring involving high-ranking officers. That woman, before she could present the final proof, disappeared on a mission labeled technical malfunction nearly 13 years ago. No one mentioned her again. No headlines, no files, no trace, except for that jacket, and Maya, unknowingly carrying a secret across her shoulders that could change everything. Just one day after that forgettable homeroom session, Maya didn't come to school, nor did she return home that afternoon. As she always did, something unusual, something dangerous was happening to the girl. By the time the tiny apartment's clock ticked past 6 p.m., Justine Carter began to worry. She called the school office, then Maya's homeroom teacher. No one had seen Maya since. By 8 p.m., she was running to the local police station, but with fewer than 24 hours past, the case didn't qualify as a missing persons report. Just as she was about to leave, dazed and shivering in the drizzle, a stranger stood waiting for her at the narrow alley that led to her building. He handed her a folded piece of paper and vanished into the night like he had never existed. The paper was old, the edges singed. It bore only a single handwritten line in black ink. If you want to save your daughter, come alone. Bring the shooting star jacket. Coordinates 40. Justine gripped the paper in her hand, rain mixing with tears, until it was impossible to tell them apart. No plea, no warning, just a stark command. And she understood. The past had finally come knocking. Early the next morning, she put on the old bomber jacket, once a symbol of honor and bravery, and also the reason she had been living in hiding for nearly 13 years. The coordinates led to an abandoned industrial zone on the city's outskirts, once a Cold War-era factory, now just rusted concrete frames and piles of lead-dusted scrap. Justine walked in, alone, carrying nothing but the jacket and a small knife hidden in her sleeve. As she reached the crumbling building at the center of the site, the iron doors slammed shut behind her. A figure stepped out from the shadows. Tall, black coat, cap pulled low, but the glint beneath the brim was unmistakable. His voice cracked, dry and immediate. Well, you came. Still the classic shooting star. Never turns down a summons, even when it's clearly a trap. Justine froze, eyes wide. A name escaped her lips like a ghost. Lucas Marr. He pulled off the cap. Gaunt face, square jaw, stubbled chin. It was Lucas Marr, her former comrade from the Air Force Special Operations. Back then, he'd been the logistics officer, in charge of supplies for top-secret missions. Impossible, she whispered. You resigned in 2012, said you needed to care for your daughter after the Beirut investigation. He smirked. Naive. That was just my excuse to leave that mess behind and start something freer. But you didn't let me go. Lucas stepped closer, voice sharp as steel. You exposed my network. You got the arms shipment seized, cost me my position, my markets, everything. Then you vanished. I thought you were dead. But then 13 years later I saw that damn star patch again, on the shoulder of some little brat, talking to General Harrington. Justine's blood ran cold. Lucas continued. At first I thought it was dumb luck, but I tracked it back to you. You posing as some humble black woman? Clever. But now you're here with the jacket to end this. You took the girl, didn't you? Justine growled, gripping the hem of her coat. Maya has nothing to do with this. Let her go. You're wrong, he whispered, eyes narrowing. She's your weakness. She doesn't need to know anything. Just wearing that jacket was enough. Lucas whistled. From behind a pile of scrap, a trap door opened. Maya was being held inside. Justine lunged forward, but was stopped by two masked mercenaries in black. They forced her to her knees, bound her hands, and confiscated her phone. Lucas approached, raising a handheld recorder. Time to record your farewell, legendary pilot. This death will look like an accident, and I'll return to my trade routes like nothing ever happened. He hit record, but at that moment, a gunshot rang out from afar. One of the mercenaries dropped instantly. The other turned, only to be knocked out cold by a rifle butt to the back of the head. From the shadows emerged General Harrington, gun raised, eyes gleaming like steel. Step away from her, Lucas, he barked. We tracked you using the device Maya carried, and I knew you weren't dead. I was just waiting for you to show your face. Lucas froze, his gaze locked with Harrington's, their shared past erupting like fire between two former brothers in arms. I used to call you family, Harrington said, voice hoarse but steady. Until you betrayed everything, for money. Lucas screamed, reaching for his gun. Too late. A single shot from Harrington's pistol tore through his shoulder, sending him crashing to the ground. Maya was freed in seconds, sprinting into her mother's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. Justine clutched her daughter, then looked up at Harrington. Their eyes met, for the first time in 13 years. The general stood silent. You were Shooting Star? Justine nodded. I never died. I just left the battlefield, found this girl, raised her, lived a quiet life, and waited for this day. He gently squeezed her hand, not the handshake of an officer, but the grasp of an old friend, reunited in the ashes. The recorder, still rolling, had captured every word of Lucas's confession. Kidnapping, murder plot, and the smuggling ring Justine had once tried to expose. Harrington handed all evidence to federal authorities. The trap was shut. Lucas Marr, the man who once ruled every combat zone, was now handcuffed by the very truth he thought he'd buried forever. Maya was taken to the hospital that very night. She was conscious, with only minor scrapes, but her mind was still reeling. Still, when she saw her mother sitting at the head of the bed, still wearing the faded bomber jacket, eyes red but steady, Maya gripped her hand tightly, clinging to the one constant in a world spinning out of control. Justine didn't cry. She had never allowed herself to cry in front of her daughter. But for the first time in over 13 years, she told the truth. I'm not just someone who sells second-hand clothes. I was a pilot, codename Shooting Star. And you're the most precious thing I ever rescued from a sky on fire. Maya looked at her. She didn't fully understand, but something inside her glowed. 3 days later, national news exploded with headlines. Military arms trafficking ring exposed, thanks to anonymous female whistleblower. Codename Shooting Star, revealed after 13 years. Government restores honor to disappeared airwoman. In an emergency press conference, the Pentagon spokesperson admitted, "We failed to protect the whistleblower. We failed when we let Justine Carter vanish just to survive. Today, we officially restore her rank, her rights, and her honor." When asked about the adopted daughter, General Harrington simply smiled. That girl, she's more worthy of the Shooting Star emblem than anyone I know. 2 weeks later, at Arlington Air Base, an unprecedented ceremony was held. More than 300 attendees, senior officers, veterans, Department of Defense representatives, and reporters. On the stage, flags were raised. 2 honorary seats were left empty, marked by small plaques that read, "For those once forgotten." When Justine Carter's name was announced, she held Maya's hand tightly and walked up the steps in an ivory dress. Her curly hair was neatly pinned, and Maya clutched a handkerchief embroidered with a small shooting star. In the spring sunlight, the girl's face glowed. Not the quiet child at the back of the classroom mocked and ignored, but someone standing beside a mother who had carried truth buried for so long. General Harrington stood next to Maya and handed her a newly crafted bomber jacket, an exact replica of the legendary model, embroidered with the Shooting Star design, but made in a single edition only. Inside the collar, a message was stitched. Courage isn't passed down through blood, but through the heart. His voice echoed across the field. On behalf of the United States Air Force, I hereby name Maya Carter, an honorary daughter of our ranks, for her courage, her clarity, and for being the spark that reignited a buried truth. He bowed and pinned the honorary insignia to Maya's shoulder. The entire hall stood in ovation. Some old soldiers wiped away tears. Young female cadets nodded with pride. When Maya spoke, her voice didn't tremble as many expected. I never thought I'd wear something called honor, but I've learned that uniforms don't define people. People give uniforms their meaning. She paused. We once believed honor was a symbol, but it turns out it lives in people like my mom, those who speak the truth, even if they must spend a lifetime in silence to survive it. The room fell utterly still. Then, a single clap. Then two. And then the longest, loudest applause of the entire ceremony thundered through the air. After the tribute, Maya was awarded a full scholarship from the National Defense Youth Talent Fund. She was invited to a summer space science camp, eventually becoming a face of inspiration in national education programs. No one called her trash anymore. No one dared mock the jacket with the star. Her school invited Justine to speak at the next flag ceremony. Several teachers quietly apologized for not believing, for doubting, for staying silent while Maya was being hurt. Justine held no resentment. She simply smiled, because she knew. Sometimes forgiveness is the only way for memory to become motivation. Not scars. Their lives changed. Justine declined an offer to become a communications advisor at the Pentagon. Instead, she opened a small workshop, specializing in hand-embroidered bomber jackets. Each jacket told a story. They called it the Shooting Star Studio, a place where people could leave their name, their truths, their memories, stitched into lasting symbols. Maya still went to school, still quiet, still not fond of talking too much. But her eyes had changed. There was light in them, and the people around her knew. They were living beside a part of legend. One breezy afternoon, as Maya and Justine sat on a park bench, Maya rested her head on her mother's shoulder and asked softly, "Do you regret it? Leaving the military? Raising me?" Justine stroked her hair and replied, "If I hadn't left, I wouldn't have saved you. And without you, everything I ever flew through would have just been air." Maya smiled. Her fingers clutched the edge of her new jacket, restitched exactly like the old one, with a small shooting star streaking across a dark sky. The wind carried the scent of sunset and renewal. And for the first time, Maya wasn't afraid of anything. Not because she had a title, but because she had seen the truth and survived it. It's not the jacket that makes honor, nor the rank, nor the medals. Honor is woven from courage, from a mother who dared to disappear to live her truth, and from the purity of a child brave enough to wear the past as she walks toward the future.